Welcome to the latest edition of what was once called the LFC Delaware podcast. We're going to be changing the name of that. We're looking for inspirational other names. We've kind of run through a few ideas which don't seem to be kind of working out. But anyway, whatever we're called, welcome to the podcast. This is the second part of this week's edition. It's the week before the season starts. We're actually recording this on the Friday before the Leeds United game. As usual, we've got an honoured guest. And this week it's Talia from our own supporters club who's joined us. Welcome, Talia. Also got Charlie, Tim, and Sean. Let's go. Couple of announcements first. I'll kick off with subscription. If you're tuning into this, it's still called the LFC Delaware podcast, but we will announce whatever the new name is, but please subscribe so you can see future editions. We've got some really interesting guests lined up, which nobody knows about yet, because we've only signed them up this morning. So hopefully many more interesting episodes in the future. A few other announcements. Let's talk about membership.
Sure. So please renew. And if you haven't yet, then something really exciting is happening. I think, 10 days left, guys? Something like that, before we give away a gift card to the Anfield shop. Very exciting. So you'll be in the running for that. And I mean, to me, that's a pretty darn good gift to get. So make sure you renew.
And if you've already renewed, you'll be in the raffle automatically. So
right.
No need to worry there. Although we wouldn't stop you signing up twice. So tomorrow, big game, first game of the season. What's going on at Rooney's, Tim?
So Rooney's Delaware Avenue is being closed down to allow outdoor dining. So where you would normally park your car in front of the pub, there will be picnic tables instead. I'm told there's 4 that are reserved just for the club. We're going to have a TV set up on the outdoor patio so we can sit outside, have beers brought to us, wear masks when we're standing up, and remain socially distant. Tomorrow's game, 12:30, Saturday the 12th. The following week, the 20th, is a Sunday. It's an 11:30 kickoff, and halftime of that match is when we'll be raffling off that free $50 gift card to the Anfield shop for one of our lucky members.
A mere down payments on a Vapor shirt, all right? Okay. There's lots of other things.
The badges, that's
yeah. Oh.
Get a loan to buy one.
You're still waiting? Oh, well, maybe the $50. Anyway, so let's get going. I guess there's been a lot going on this week, and not all of it seemed to be related to the start of the season. And someone's going to enjoy this more than other people, but there's still a lot of transfer talk swirling. It seems that Liverpool are falling down on the job of not signing. Well, let's start with Thiago and goodness knows who else. And as Klopp, I think, pointed out this week, we are not Chelsea. And that seems to be very frustrating for a lot of people. So I'm going to go around, and you don't have to talk about Thiago. You don't have to talk about Genie. You don't have to talk about Brewster. But just thoughts about kind of where we are right now in terms of kind of, do we need some of these upgrades, or are we good to go? Let's start with Talia as our guest.
I mean, you guys know what I think about transfer rumors. I think I made that pretty clear over the past couple weeks. I won't give my pregnancy analogy again, I guess, although I can for the record. I guess message me if you want to know my analogy. I'm not a fan of the rumor mill by any means. And whether or not I think that we need anybody, I think more importantly that Klopp has a plan, and he was really clear in his thought process when he was talking to, was it the Echo, I think, that was what you were referring to, that we're not Chelsea. Yeah. And frankly, I quoted his quote from there. I stand by it. I think he is so clever and forward thinking. I mean, let's even take Elliot as an example. Okay, 17 years old. I mean, he went through, I know not our academy, but we've seen his greatness already. He's 17 years old. Klopp has a plan. I think we just need to be a little bit more patient and let him execute his plan.
Patience, that seems in short supply in some of the Twitter feeds. And Tim, as our social media guru, what do you make of what's going on out there, and what's your perspective?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge fan of all of it. I did read something. I was trying to look it up, and I can't find exactly where it was, but I saw a tweet this morning where someone pointed out the fact that we're always going to be linked to either German players or players from the Bundesliga because of Jurgen Klopp.
Mm-hmm.
Because for the most part, we can find a photo of Jurgen Klopp hugging one of those players, and had a list of, like, you know, going through Aubameyang, Werner, Havertz, like all these guys. Klopp is huge fans of them because he played against them. So yes, I don't think it means that we're going to sign them. And I was actually wondering last night, like, when all the Thiago rumors started, it's a weird guy to be fixated on for me. Like, I know that he's a really great midfielder, can play in a variety of roles in that midfield. But if we are going to fixate on someone and say, this is the guy we need to unlock the potential of this team that just won the European Cup and then a year later the Premier League, it seems odd to me that we're focusing on a 29-year-old midfielder from Spain as the guy who's our, like, end-all be-all.
Yeah.
I'm kind of over it, in case you couldn't tell by my intonation.
I could pick that up. I could pick it up. So, yeah, unlock the potential. I did see that headline. Yes, that's kind of interesting. Unlock the potential of the team that keeps winning things. And long may it continue. So Charlie, what do you make of all this? I read a few things this week where people were definitely kind of lining up in camps. And I know you and I talked about one guy who was on the Anfield Wrap who was kind of, I don't know if he was using the hashtag FSG out, but it kind of felt like that's where he was going with his argument.
Yeah, well, I listened to one of the podcasts, and it seemed to be 30 minutes of him lamenting not having signed Timo Werner. And I mean, maybe that's the reason that everyone's now latched onto Thiago, is like, well, we missed out on him, but now we must have Thiago. Look, I wasn't sold until recently, but now that Gary Neville has told us that it would be a massive mistake for us to not sign Thiago, then, well, just get it done, FSG. I mean, don't worry about where the money comes from. Just borrow the money and splash the cash, right?
Absolutely.
So honestly, it's just getting ridiculous. And $100 million revenue shortfall they're expecting.
Yeah.
And at a point where we'd really re-signed a number of our players, and so the transfer money isn't necessarily there, even though we won the league and we won the Champions League the year before that. Great, but this money isn't just going into anyone's pockets. And for people to be carrying on about, well, why can't FSG just take out 40 million quid and get this done?
Yeah.
And we saw the Swiss ramble on the accounts of Liverpool. Pretty good explanation. I'd be interested to see the accounts of FSG's other interests, Boston Red Sox being, probably the biggest part of that. And, it's not like they necessarily have the money there. Sure, they could look at potentially bringing in new owners to invest funds, but they've decided that this is how they want to go. They want Liverpool to be self-sustaining to avoid the situation we were in 10 years ago. And, how short-sighted are you to criticize them for doing this, given how they've turned this club around and the success we've had in the last 2 years? I mean, how much credit do these guys need to accrue before you can give them a break and say, you know what, I trust that you guys know what you're doing better than I do.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's all I got.
That seems a long way off on some level. But I have had certain people, and I was listening to Neil Atkinson of the Anfield Wrap this week, and he was making a really cogent case where he was basically saying that Liverpool have invested in signing their old players up for longer periods in the salaries and the bonuses, and that's kind of where they devoted most of the resources, which is borne out by the Swiss Ramble piece. So, Sean, I know you spend a lot of time looking at things like the Swiss Ramble. You're going to tell me you haven't looked at it this
No,
week?
I have. Yeah. No, I'm like, where to start? There's some, it's all ridiculous.
Mhm.
You know, yeah, the money's not there to spend. FSG are interested in doing things in a financially responsible way. They're not going to go below $200 million they don't have, which we should be grateful for, because that won't get us back into the place we were at with Dix and Gillette. You know, yeah, we've increased, extended salaries, and my understanding is with the bonuses, our wage bill has been 50% higher both of the last 2 years. People don't seem to understand that. People don't seem to understand that when you rebuild your training facility and you're expanding stadium for a second time, that takes financing. It takes a lot of money. Like when Arsenal rebuilt their stadium, how many years did they go without spending a lot in transfer? Well, it's because they didn't have the money, because they just built a new stadium. And it's like people aren't connecting the dots there. My understanding was going into the offseason, Liverpool's goals were to sign Timo Werner and a midfielder from Lyon for $50 million or close to that. They scrapped all that when the pandemic hit because their financials were blown up. Yeah. So like that, it is what it is. I mean, I don't, you know, the idea that John Henry's going to dip into his own pocket to buy a player is just ridiculous. It's not how we operate. And it's like people don't have a good understanding of how the club operate, basically. Yeah. Like Klopp's not talking to John Henry and saying, go buy that player like they do at Chelsea, apparently. That's not how Liverpool works. Klopp works with Michael Edwards, and there's a whole process that goes into how we buy players and how much we buy players for. And that's why we've almost had a perfect record since Klopp's been at the club, because we don't miss. And that's the way they want to run the club. And I still think that it's possible the Thiago thing could happen, but it's not like we're a club that the biggest thing that frustrates me about this is we just finished on 99 points and we won the league. And everybody's worried about Chelsea, who finished on 66 points. Mm-hmm. And I don't care who they buy. They're not improving by 30 points in a year. Nobody has ever done that. You know, improving by 10 points in a year is a lot for any club, no matter who you buy. And bringing in 6 new starters is not ideal either, especially when there's no training time and they don't have any time to bed in. So it's just like, it feels to me like it's just a pissing match with people on Twitter to like brag about who they're buying rather than what the club is actually doing on the field. Yeah. And so it's just, yeah, I could go on. It's just nonsense.
Further to that Chelsea conundrum, Klopp's pre-game presser today, he said, and I'm not sure he was embellishing it, but he said, from now on, we'll be playing more often than we'll be having full training sessions from now until probably the end of the season. Imagine having such an influx of new people, having your squad currently with, I mean, Leeds recently had a couple players out with COVID, a number of their players on international duty. I mean, really, how exactly do they expect this whole thing to gel in time to challenge us in this coming season? I do not understand the prophets telling us that Chelsea's going to be a bigger problem for us than City. Like, give me a break.
In general, I don't understand Chelsea comparisons, period. I just don't right now. I can understand in the past why that might have been something that came up, but right now, really? It's like different worlds right now. It's just totally confusing for me. How that even comes up as, you know what I mean? Like you said, City maybe.
I mean, even Man City, nobody's talking about how they just lost David Silva, who's probably their best player ever.
Yep.
I mean, like losing him is a big loss for City. Look at, I mean, last year I think they suffered from losing Company, for example, and now they're losing Silva. They lost Yaya Toure a couple of years before that. Like, I don't think that I think they're definitely our closest competitor, but they have issues. You know, Pep might not be there in a year. Like they're not in as good a situation as we are right now. So, you know, I'm not worried about them spending money. If they get Koulibaly, for example, he's never played right-sided center back, and which is where they're going to try to play him. and that makes a big difference which side you play on.
Yeah.
And so I don't even see that necessarily working out well right away. So there's so much that doesn't make sense about all these discussions.
So there's definitely a thing about kind of winning the transfer window, which has become bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I think there's a couple of clubs, one not far from our own, maybe a mile away, who've made really big investments.
Yeah.
And I got to believe that's based on the assumption that they're playing European football in 2021, 22. It can't be based on them finishing mid-table and looking like they did last year. So I think there are people making, I would say calculated gambles, but I don't know how calculated some of these things are. And I think your point about embedding players into the squad is good. I don't want to kind of draw this out because I do want to look about what comes next and what our perspective is on the season before we're done today. But it would appear that somebody close to the club is convinced that Liverpool are interested in offloading a saleable asset, Ryan Brewster in this case, which would suggest, it seems weird, right, to do that, but it seems to suggest they are trying to generate some money to do something. Now, perhaps we should leave it there before I upset somebody, but because I'm glad we didn't even have to talk about Genie, because it appears that everyone was so glad to have him back at Melwood yesterday that it feels like maybe that rumor will disappear too.
Yeah.
Let's look ahead. So there is an argument to be had, I think, which I think Andrew Beasley put forward, which is Liverpool's last two seasons have been phenomenal. Achieving that level in a third year might be really, really difficult. So kind of thinking about tomorrow's game against Marco Bielsa's Leeds, what are your thoughts about that and perhaps the sort of the upcoming season with the intensity that we already talked about? Talia.
For me, this actually ties into the Mo-hate a little bit, because one of the things that I kept saying to people is, you're literally comparing somebody to a record-breaking season.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to sort of think about the club the same way. We have to put things into perspective, where what we accomplished the past 2 years was phenomenal. It was phenomenally amazing. And so our goals may not be that. They could be, we don't know. I mean, we could keep it going for a third year, but if they're not, I think one of the things that we can maybe use this year to do, and what I'd love to see, is how Klopp really works with a lot of these younger players, especially somebody like Nico Williams, who went through our academy, who's only 19, who's shown a lot of promise, or Elliot, who I spoke about before. I think that's what I'd like to see out of this season. Obviously, I want to see us win everything again, but I think that what would be great long-term, big picture for us to keep winning, 5 years from now and however many years from now, is going to be that this is maybe a transitional season, and maybe next season also, we'll see how it goes, where some of these younger players start to find their mojo, start to find their place, and Klopp starts to really, really figure out how they tick, and things like that. And some of our important people are getting on in years a little bit, and so this is the time, I think, to maybe to think about some of that stuff.
So it's sad when we're thinking of 29-year-olds getting on in years.
Yeah, but I agree.
I do want to pick up on your point. Go to Tim next about one of my pet peeves, which is like people seem to have completely ignored like Salah's contribution last year in terms of goals and assists, kind of being up there with almost anybody. And it was interesting. He wasn't even in the PFA Team of the Year, which I like. He scored as many goals, almost as many goals as Aubameyang, and contributed much more in terms of assists in a team that, anyway, so I could rant on about Salah, which what's your expectation for the season then, Tim? Maybe thinking specifically about the game tomorrow and kind of how he might line up.
Yeah, I rewatched the Blackpool game this morning, just in case we talked about it. I wanted it to be refreshed. And seeing some of the formations that the team was playing has me really excited for what this season could look like. Charlie had mentioned that at times it looked like we were almost playing like a 4-2-2-2, or like a 4-2-4, something like that. And I think the way that we lined up against Blackpool, I think we'll see it a lot more. Not that Klopp's going to drop the 4-3-3 by any stretch of the imagination, but these double pivot lineups that they were playing against Blackpool are really set up in ways that we could see players that I hope we don't get rid of, like Divock Origi and Ryan Brewster playing up top in a two-striker role, or Jurgen Shaqiri doesn't seem like he's going anywhere, and Harvey Elliott, who play well out wide more than they do in a traditional right wing kind of role. So I think what I've seen from the preseason, specifically from that one match, but that 7-2, we got it going. Yeah. I'm hoping to see more of that, because one of the things I said was last season, like, we won, we dominated the league, but a lot of those matches were pretty gosh darn boring to watch, because it was just us trying to, break apart a back eight. Yeah. So I think if these new formations, if that allows us to do that a little bit better, I think the games will be more fun to watch. Hopefully we get the same result and we dominate the league again. But in either case, I think we're going to play some exciting football. And I think, as Talia said, I think we're going to start working in those youngsters. Like Curtis Jones looked amazing on my second watch of that game. Mm-hmm. He's just dangerous from anywhere on the field if you could, put on net instead of next to the net. Yeah. But I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a good season to watch as a fan.
Yeah. Tomorrow, I think, might be particularly intriguing. And I'm kind of wondering whether, because Leeds aren't a team that they didn't in Championship sit deep, whether he'll just go with 4-3-3 against them, not expecting them to kind of play that low block. Although I think sometimes teams end up doing that, even if they don't intend, because they just get pushed back and back. So I can't believe we haven't mentioned Taki Minamino or Naby Keita yet, because I do think they will be significant. So maybe that's a cue for you, Charlie. What are your thoughts about the upcoming season?
Well, yeah, look, further to those different formation possibilities, that gives you the idea with that double pivot. I mean, you got Fabinho, apparently Keita, Curtis Jones played it very well. Obviously Henderson, Gini, is another possibility. Back to, where are we going to put another midfielder? We got James Milner too, if everyone remembers him. But maybe this 4-2-2-2, maybe that'll give Gini the possibility of moving up and getting some of the production he's getting in the Netherlands team, which maybe was the tempting thing of him potentially going to work under Koeman. So, maybe he'll be moving, up towards the middle two, if you like. But yeah, Taki and Bobby were just mesmerizing to watch. I mean, I could watch that whole game and just watch those two, and the way they interacted, and the number of times you see Taki, he's in the spot that you'd expect Bobby to be in, and now Bobby's in a different spot. I mean, if it's mesmerizing me, what's it doing to the opposing defenses? I mean, clearly Blackpool is not, of the caliber that we're going to be facing this year. I understand that it's a preseason game. Let's keep that in mind. I think a lot of people are going to pieces about this, and now apparently Klopp doesn't like Fab because he had a go at him one time in the first half about, you're going to make a tackle or whatever, So look, it's a preseason, it's a warm up, but it to me, it's fascinating the possibilities that this could present. I don't know what to expect on the weekend. I probably expect more of a 4-3-3. I highly doubt Marco Bielsa's gonna set up a low block against us. So certainly he's preaching as if he won't adjust his style at all, which I don't believe, but I don't think he'll set up a low block. So yeah, look, I tell you what, it's the next 24 hours is going to take forever to finally arrive. But we've had now an 11-game preseason. if you think about it. So I think we're a lot better prepared than most.
Hopefully that's true, that we're better prepared than most. Just a word on Bielsa. Jonathan Wilson of The Guardian, who I've mentioned probably numerous times, talks a lot about Bielsa. Apparently the reason he's been fired from a lot of the jobs he's had is because he is so stuck with his principles instead of kind of grinding out results. So if anyone's kind of telling the truth, it probably is Bielsa. So Sean, what are you looking forward to then? New season?
It's going to be an interesting season. I'm looking forward to seeing more of Nabi and Taki. I think that they seem to almost be developing some kind of partnership. The little bit that we've seen them play, it seems like they have an understanding with each other. I'm a little bit nervous about the game tomorrow just because it's a first game and Leeds are going to come out, I think, super motivated being back in the Prem. And it sounds like Trent is likely to not play because he hasn't played much. So tomorrow, I think we'll win, but I'm a little nervous just because it's the first game and it's kind of a tough matchup for the first game because you're playing against probably the best promoted team. That's historically a very, very good team and has a big reputation. So I could see them coming out, firing. But I'm really excited about a lot of things this season. Nabi, Taki, Curtis Jones. I think Trent is just going to keep getting better. People forget he's still only 21 years old. He's got a lot. He's got a long way to go before he reaches his peak. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him over the course of the season. Imagine if he gets close to 20 assists as a right back, which, that's like outlandish territory, but 2 years in a row now, he's set records for it. So it'll be exciting to see the changes. I think the idea of changing formation, the double pivot, it sounds like that might be something we might go towards. I don't know. We'll see it tomorrow, but that's kind of exciting to get 4 attackers in against some teams. Yeah. I'm excited. I can't wait for it to start.
So I generally start most games finding reasons why Liverpool could lose. So nervousness is part of the. I guess there hasn't been much of it since the restart. It was like, well, we were, once we knew football was coming back, we knew we were going to win. So it was there was less tension in those games. Mm-hmm. Just on your point about Trent, he did play 90 minutes almost for England on Tuesday or Wednesday. So,
but he struggled through the 90 minutes. I heard. I didn't watch that game, but I heard he was kind of struggling towards the end.
To be honest, the biggest thing for me was like, why are they playing it for 90 minutes? It's like, well, I guess it's good because he hasn't played. But so I know we're running out of time. Did want to go around one last time and, as our usual closing topic, the most interesting or uninteresting thing that you came across about Liverpool this week that you want to share. Probably should have warned you about this, Talia. If you want to go last, that's fine.
No, I know what it is. I read the Google Doc. For me, honestly, it was more of an emotional thing. It was the letter that Lovren got from Hendo. I think it really proved what a class act Hendo is, and that he's able to continue being a leader even after somebody leaves the club, and even after somebody contentious leaves the club, who, for all intents and purposes, everyone was pretty much on board with as being like, we hate Lovren. So I think that there's a lot to be said there. And what he was able to do in that letter was not just showcase, what he saw were difficult times, I think, as he put it, but also he complimented him for his strengths. And that's something that all of the rest of the players are going to see and notice. And I think it's going to just help us moving forward that he took that step. So I loved that. Made my whole week happy.
I think it showed a lot about the camaraderie of that squad, and that even though we might be like, oh, good, Lovren's gone, or Lallana, he didn't contribute much. They're important people around the dressing room. So I mentioned Lallana. Tim, what do you think from the week?
Lucky I don't have longer arms, Paul. No.
Oh,
I read a really funny thing just this morning, and the headline of the article was Shaqiri has new role in the team. And it was basically just saying that because Dejan Lovren is gone now and he was Mo Salah's best friend, that there was apparently all eyes on the squad to see who Mo would be friends with. And the good news is apparently it's Jurgen Shaqiri. So they've been, having a good time on the practice pitch. And if that is the level of controversy that we can generate about Liverpool the day before the season starts, I'm all for it. I hope they have a happy life together.
so Jurgen Shaqiri's in. That's great. Okay.
Beautiful bromance.
May even play a game. Right. Charlie, what did you notice this week?
At the risk of being repetitive, Andrew Beasley did a preseason review, not to be confused with a season preview, on the Tompkins Times, and one of his last statements was, "You could argue in some ways that Liverpool have had an 11-game preseason, which began with a loss at the Etihad." And I'm on board with that because I think that's the best way of describing those dead robbers that we had towards the end. So, who says we had a shortened preseason? We had the longest preseason of all time.
With a settled squad, right? Love it. So, Tompkins Times, is the fortnight free viewing still available?
It is, I believe, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Nice.
Right.
Yep.
Get on
of course,
that.
don't forget Perched, Paul Tompkins' new book. I don't have it with me, but you can get it on Amazon, either US or UK. Support an excellent cause and an excellent writer.
So, Sean, what do you have this week?
I guess nothing specific. I'm just happy to see everybody finally giving Ginny the love he deserves now that he might leave. Hopefully not, but it doesn't look like he's going to sign a new contract. So maybe he'd leave next year. But he's always been one of my favorite players. Similar to Hendo, he's I think changed his game for the good of the club. I don't think we'd be able to play the way we do without his ability to cover fullbacks and hold the ball and distribute the way he does. It's just important to recognize how much he's meant to this team, on the pitch especially. I mean, think about the big goals, the big games that we've won. He almost always comes up big, in some way. So, I hope he doesn't leave. He's always been one of my favorite players. There aren't very many players in the world that I think could replace him. So, it's been interesting because I think he's gotten a lot of unfair criticism over the years. And now all of a sudden everybody's upset because he might leave. And it's like, well, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Right. So
Always. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw the photo of Genie at training yesterday that I mentioned earlier.
I did. Yeah. And I heard he had a talk with Klopp. So maybe they'll work something out. That'd be great if they did. I haven't seen anything other than the pictures and the fact that he talked to Klopp so far, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know what any of it means. Again, I'm not overly concerned with it because we finished on 99 points and we won the league by 18. And let's get real, people. Nobody's really that close to us. Man City probably is the only team that I think could get close to us. Not to sound arrogant, it's just a fact. Look at the results. Teams don't change that much usually in results year to year. So,
Keep in mind that any improvement we see from United or Chelsea is also going to be taking more points from those other potential, suitors.
Yeah, and I've heard arguments saying the rest of the league's getting better. Well, first of all, we only play those two teams twice, so they're not going to be taking points off us very much.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to believe. I think that especially Chelsea has gotten better in terms of talent. I don't know if it all, happened on the pitch this year the way people think, but they've signed a lot of great players, or at least potentially great players. But you know, going from 66 points to even above 80 would be pretty crazy. That doesn't happen very often. So
there's probably a whole show to be done on Chelsea and how easy it will be to gel. But let's not do that show until we'll talk about them when we play them. I'm going to end and kind of picking up sort of on what you said. I mean, obviously the answer to why we got all those points is because we were lucky, right? Well, actually, this week I read a piece by our friend Simon Hughes about William Spearman. Don't know if you've heard of him. He is one of the kind of brains trust behind the scenes at Anfield that does the stats, and he does a lot of kind of research on potential new hires, and he didn't give any examples of the work that he did. So clearly, they were afraid of using the examples might indicate exactly what stats they're using, but they use a lot of sort of positioning-based data about where players are on the field at any given point of time and how long it takes to, how likely a goal is to be scored from certain situations, which may be the thing that how Liverpool are confounding XG. But anyway, it was a wonderful piece. And if you subscribe, you can subscribe to The Athletic, I think, for $1 a week right now.
$1 a month for the next 6 months. I signed up yesterday. As soon as I heard about it, I was like, well, I'm signing up for that.
You should definitely get on that and read the article about William Spearman, one of the kind of a number of very interesting people behind the scenes at Anfield. So I think we're out of time. We're totally out of time. Okay. Thanks, Talia.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. Okay. Goodbye from the rest of us, and we'll talk to you after the Leeds game.